the service of ire.
Welcome back to Code A. We are in the afternoon session, evening session, wherever you are in the world, doesn't matter what time of day it is. It's the second session of Code A today, where we have potentially the best group of 8 players we have ever seen in one day of Code A before.
I actually think that's exactly the case, Will. I mean, today we had already a couple of really good games and really entertaining matches in the earlier group, but what we are going to experience right now, the next 4 games, this is going to be incredible.
It is going to be insane, man. We've got, of course, Flash.
Yeah.
Is actually going to be playing in this group. We've got 2 foreigners. We've got Naniwa and, of course, Mana. You have an old player, ASD, thrown in the group. You have Maru. You also have Effort from CJ Intis. I mean, just think about it. Some other Kessel players, for example, Mini, playing against Naniwa. And then you have Killer, an old favorite. Songho is actually playing against Flash, so that should be an exciting match to watch 2 old Brood War players playing against each other. That is going to be sick.
And of course, the 2 foreigners that we have today, both of them Protoss, the Swedish and the Polish player, they dropped out of Code S. Both of them were not able to win their matches, and Code S dropped down to Code A, find themselves now 1 best of 3 from being eliminated from Code A and Code S entirely. This is, of course, the round of 48, and therefore, who loses today will drop down to Code B and has to requalify through the Code A qualifier once again.
Yeah, and that is pretty stressful considering who we've got here. You know, for example, a player like Naniwa or Mana, foreigner who's living actually in a different country, training, trying to get better. If they're out, it's a lot harder for them to get in than, for example, other players. Probably won't get seeded again since they were just recently seeded, so it's really important. If you're a foreigner fan, you got to cheer for these guys.
Mana is up against a Terran player today in our first match. He's up against FXO ASD, and Naniwa later on will have to face a Protoss player, and he had quite a hard time preparing for this match because he did not have any information about Mini whatsoever. The Casper player just advanced. And now we're having a quick look at the results that we had so far in the round of 48.
These are last games. Exactly. You can see all the finishing each other's sentences at the same time there. All the players on the left advanced 2-0. And of course, those were all the players who fell from the up and down matches up against newcomers. Not a single one who qualified for Code A was able to take a match.
At least in the earlier group, but then in the evening things changed a little bit with Rare not making it against Hack, but Roro advancing over A, so one of the Casper players was able to advance. And then in our third game, the second one joined him with Byung, able to qualify against first.
Yep, and of course, here are the matches that we had today. We're going to take a look at some quick interviews from the winning players.
네, 오늘 경기 일단 손쉽게 좀 풀린 것 같은데 정말 기분 좋고요. 그리고 이번 시즌 꼭 열심히 해가지고 코드S 꼭 가는 모습 보여드리겠습니다. 감사합니다. 안녕하세요, 웅진스타즈 김유진입니다. 오늘 경기 이기게 돼서 기분이 좋고 오늘 이겼으니까 남은 경기도 꼭 이겨서 실망스러운 모습 보여드리지 않고 꼭 코드S 가겠습니다.
Don't be distracted by the Anypong sounds in the background. He was able to get through. He didn't sound too excited. It was almost as if it was too surreal for him, but he was actually able to eliminate Jagji, the final NS Hosa Terran, out of the entire tournament.
And SOS is also known as Shy. This is one of the IDs that he used earlier when he started to play in StarCraft 2, or one of the IDs that was used when he played the crossover matches. He was able to win one of those small tournaments against GSL players, and now up against the former champion. He did really well with the 2-0. But these are the games that we are going to see now.
God. Mana versus ASD, Maru versus Effort, Naniwa versus Mini, and Killer against Flash.
Yeah, Flash, of course, making an appearance here. He was able to win one of the Code A qualifier brackets, which was really, really impressive. He didn't even drop a single map then. And now he's up against Killer. But of course, one of the games that we are going to focus on first is Mana against ASD. Both of them already in the lobby. And map number 1 today is going to be Antigua Shipyard.
Yeah, Antigua Shipyard at map number 1. Mana falling directly from Code S to Code A. was not able to get out of his group, but he did do extremely well in the up and down matches. That's where he was seeded. Common misconception that he was seeded into Code S is not true. He actually was able to earn his spot in Code S by winning his up and down group. He's playing against ASD, a player who's been around quite some time. Used to be ASD FOU until the team changed names, and now he's back in Code A. Requalified from Code B. It's been a while. Let's see what he's been up to.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting game that we have. Mana, of course, he's one of the players that's said to be very strong against Terran, but he has to prove it today. A young Polish player, earlier on practiced still a little bit at the GOM house, and now he's here in the booth at the GSL. To the left, to the right, we have his opponent. Some fancy bracelets here, and of course his FXO shirt and Tiga Shipyard. Map number 1 today.
Yeah.
The second map is going to be Entombed, and if it comes to a third map, we will see Ohana.
This is going to be so intense. This is only game number 1 of potentially 12 excellent games that we will see today. ASD bouncing around a little bit. Mana looking confident. He's been practicing a lot. You've been staying with him. You've been watching him. You know what he's up to. We are going to start game number 1 at Antigua Shipyard. This is the Code A round of 48 with Caldor and Wolf.
You never dealt with this before. You change your grip, you know you did. We will not take no more.
Starting to the bottom of the map in red, we have the player for Mouse Sports, Grzegorz Komic, and his ID, of course, is
Mauju Mana.
We have Heaven observing for our stream today.
Here he is, 19 years old, staying in Korea for quite a while now, for nearly 2 months.
His opponent from the Team FX Open, the blue Terran here, used to blend his name with his team name, but now he is just
FXO ASD.
And ASD, historically speaking, is really strong against Protoss, but on the other hand, it's been quite a while since he played in this matchup, so Mana did not have too many games that he could check out in order to prepare for today's games, and both of them will definitely have prepared quite a lot for this. As mentioned earlier, this is the round of 48, the first round of Code A, and whoever loses this best of 3 will have to re-qualify for the league. Will drop down to Code B and will have to go through the ordeals of playing another qualifier, something that you never want to do because these Code A qualifiers are really, really tough.
They are even more difficult now that there's so many more players trying to qualify. You have casual players in there as well. They're just adding this new level of difficulty to prepare for.
Guys, when we've been to Shindorim where the qualifiers take place, the sheer amount of Casper players and B-teamers was incredible.
Yeah.
So today, these qualifiers are tougher than they ever were. And now both of them are scouting here on Antigua, which is the first map. A map that is really good for Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, great map for Blink Stalkers. Just saw that a little bit earlier today.
Yeah.
And ASD, what is going to be his plan here? So far, no gas. He is going to be going for a very macro-oriented build. He's going to be going for a command center after barracks. Getting a little bit more popular these days is actually making the barracks on the high ground. He did actually lock the probe out. And it's funny because there was a time where hardly anyone was taking gas in this matchup, so whenever you got blocked out, everyone was just like, oh, okay, it's going to be a one-rack spam. But now that gas is becoming more popular in this matchup as a Terran, if the probe gets locked out, you don't know if there's a command center on the high ground, you make it on the high ground, that can really throw somebody off. And that's exactly what he's doing right now, in fact.
Command center on the high ground. And I talked to Mana earlier, and he told me what he plans for Antigua Shipyard. So he's one of those players who will have an idea in his head what he wants to do, but he will always react to whatever he sees his opponent try to pull off. So if he actually gets his will, then what he's going to perform in this game is going for the second base and trying to attack with a +2/+2 Colossus timing. And he's a player that is really known for his storms, for going into a one Colossus first, not getting range, then starting with not only the Twilight Council, but heading straight for Storm, Templar Archive, and then later on going back into the Colossus tech. Something that he will actually not do in this game if he has the option.
Yeah, that's a really good point. He's really known for his storms. His games on Ohana, he played a game on Ohana against Keen in the up and down match. That impressed me so much with how well he was able to control the map. And at this point, he's a little bit in the dark as to what ASD is doing. You've seen he's taking his second gas now. He's waiting a little bit on that Nexus, wants to be safe. Eliminates the SCV first, then drops the Nexus. Very carefully done here.
So now ASD does not know about the expansion. But yeah, you are so right. The game against Keen was of course really important, and Mana positioned himself really well on Ahana, made sure that he had a good shot at the third base of his opponent, and just controlled every single engagement, forced his opponent into a bad situation, into a bad spot. And this is generally, of course, the idea and what you always try to seek. You want to put your opponent into a loss-loss situation where he will either lose an expansion or has to take a very bad fight.
Yeah.
And ASD right now is actually sneaking to the bottom left with one SCV. He's trying to get those scouting information, dodging the Zalnaga watchtower here and trying to get this SCV into position. But there's already one sentry that might just be able to spot the SCV. Ah, not quite. Now he sees it.
Yep. But he does not react. Okay, now he does. And he will actually take the SCV out. SCV really wants to know if there's a Nexus.
No.
No.
No scouting information whatsoever. ASD is blind. He will have to scan if he wants to have an clue if there's an expansion or if there's some kind of Blink Stalker play on one base coming his way. He has no idea what's happening at this point.
Yeah, and he's not going to scan. Oh, there he goes. Okay, scans. That is exactly what he wants to know. He wants to know, okay, triple gateway before Robo. It's all the information that he needs to know. Now he knows, okay, you have a Nexus going up. Otherwise, you'd have more gateways. Or you wouldn't have a Robo at that timing, and it just wouldn't make sense.
And right now we don't have any kind of shenanigans going on from ASD, so he plays a very straight up game, has a Marine Force that he sends across the map. It has been spotted already by the probe, and Mana is now just trying to get into position in order to react accordingly. He has Sentry in his main base so that he can use the force fields, gathering energy for quite a while, and with the robotics that he just finished, he now has the first observer on the map to get a better view of what exactly ASD is up to.
I have to say I really like how Mana is doing this with, he repeatedly sends these probes to make sure the Marines aren't coming before his observer's out. Now that his observer's out, he knows that he can actually just send that.
To be careful though, if ASD pays attention, yes, that's the scan.
Oh wow, but he misses it! Mana
so
really playing attention here, and that's huge because that's a wasted scan now and the observer still persists.
So many Terran players will have the timings for the observer down cold. They will wait for the observer. They are expecting it. They're trying to take it down. And now ASD wastes the scan, and he does not achieve anything with it. The observer doesn't lose any hit points whatsoever, and Mana now in a really good position to scout what exactly is going on and to make his play happen.
Yeah, and so far so good for both players though. Losing that scan was a big issue for ASD, but now he can see the observer and he will scan again and take it out. But he had to use an extra one. The problem for him, though, is that Observer already saw what it needed to see, is that he's playing totally standard here. He sees the reactor being switched. He knows the medevac timing is here now. Back at home, Mana is dropping his Twilight Council as well as his Forge, getting those upgrades ready. And ASD has a force that he can move out with his first two medevacs with, but now that his opponent knows the timing of that, it's not likely going to be very effective. This is the best map for that two medevac push out because there's so much surface area, there's so many different places to elevator, but Mana is very skilled and experienced against this.
And one of the things that we already mentioned last week, and I talked about with Mana a lot about it, is that he placed his tech structure at the natural. This is one of the things that a lot of Protoss players will do. Mana is also one of the Protoss that lost a lot of games because he positioned his tech structures to the left side in his main base and then lost them to drop play, which is basically something that happened because back in the days when Protoss players started to go for this, the Terrans were not able to drop as efficiently as they do today. So as a Protoss, you are most of the times a little bit on autopilot. You just do what you did for months and years. But right now, these days, you have to be a little bit more careful with your SimCity, where you position your important structures, and therefore the placement. But you can already see that Mana is not going for this original strategy that I talked about. The idea that he had going for the Colossus is something that he decided not to pull off. No, he's going for what he's known to do. He's going for Storm.
Yeah, he's great with the Storms, the fast Temple Archives. He loves to cut the robotic support bay out of his build entirely. Now he's going to have to be good, fast like lightning with his force fields here. He sees the army. He's got an observer in position, not only to spot for drops, but also spot the position here. Templar is targeted, but he wastes a stim. Does not get the Templar and has to pull back.
Yeah, pulls back here. And this is really, oh nice, the Zealot here taking down the SCV.
Wow, that's so huge. He may even have to cancel it.
I don't really think it will happen, but actually,
if he doesn't send an SCV there.
Yeah, he needs to send an SCV there. This might actually just happen by the smallest of margins. I don't really think that he's able to pull it off now.
If the Zealot had persisted, maybe, but he is chased away, but the Commander is still delayed.
But coming back to my original point, I talked about this when the game started, that Mana is one of the players that reacts to whatever he sees and goes after. He just basically follows his gut feeling and what he thinks is best. So he has this idea of going into the +2/+2 Colossus timing and now realizes, well, I'm more confident going for my usual Storm play, and he tries to execute it. He actually mentioned earlier to me when we talked about the games today that he lost a lot of games recently when he was going for Storm, but he didn't really feel that confident going into the game. But obviously this has changed. He's trying to follow what he usually does, also establishing a third base now that he has the scouting information. But he has to be very careful about this drop play that is heading his way.
Yeah, there are only 4 Stalkers here with 2 medevacs. He will be able to unload them if he forces it. The thing is, he doesn't really want to try to risk it because he doesn't know really what's on the other side of those Stalkers. The Stalkers now see the medevacs. He reacts, and Mana, meanwhile, is going for a big attack with Storm. He's got so many Zealots here. He needs to actually hit this really, really well. It's all going to be about the Storms.
And the Factory just missed the High Templars. He was just not able to scout it, and then suddenly Mana is now on the move. He's trying to head for this third base, at the same time still defending his base, but all these Marines and the 2 medevacs, they are missing.
They are missing, man, and this is exactly what Mana is known for. His good force, so he locks the army position, uses Storms. ASD is running away. He knows the Storms will come. A really nice split by ASD, but I think there may just be too many units here.
The Storms are spot on. They force the Marines out of position, and just look how all those Marines are evaporating. The drop in the main base, the medevac, it dies immediately. No, it doesn't. He really doesn't focus it down, but the rest of the units is there, and ASD is dropping in supply.
Yeah, ASD taking a small risk, taking that command center the way he did. And Mana, even though he's a little bit late with his Nexus, is doing so much damage here. He's actually going to break through this bunker. ASD is struggling to hang on for dear life. He will actually attack the Nexus of Mana at the third base. He may not be able to hold that.
The rest of the units are ready in order to defend the Nexus though, and at the same time we still have a slaughter going on. And the main base of his opponent, Mana killing so much with his Storms here. The Nexus, it died, but so did all the units of ASD, who's down to 50 supply.
Now ASD has to GG! What a great attack by Mana. He is one of the best aggressive Stormers. I don't know how to explain it, man. He just doesn't make Colossi. Most people make that Colossus so they have that power and that defensive ability, but Mana just makes the Templar and walks across the map with them. It's very rare to see a Protoss actually execute this so well.
Look how calm and collected he is here. ASD, on the other hand, this was of course a little bit tough on him. Joya is immediately talking to his player. He really had a nice idea here, and his drop play could have been so efficient, but drop play was one of the things that Mana really struggled with when he came to Korea, and he sometimes still does, but these days he's playing so more cautious when it comes down to his drop defense, and you could see it when he had the Stalkers in position. He realized there were a few medevacs headed his way, immediately put a High Templar there for the feedbacks, and everything went his way. He saw an opportunity, he took it. At the same time, he stayed really safe, talking to his brother right now. Funkai, formerly known in Brood War as Asterix, actually playing Terran himself.
Yeah.
So they just talk about the game a little bit. And of course, with his brother being able to watch the games from an observer perspective, Ken just giving me a hint or two about what ASD did so far in the match.
Yeah, and ASD played a really nice strategy. The problem was his aggression was unsuccessful, and Mana built the tech that's so risky to build. Why is it risky? Because if you go for this type of build, when that medevac pressure comes, your first Colossus is not there to help you. It's hard to hold a third base. And Mana knew that, and rather than holding a third base early, he saw that ASD was going for a third. He checked that with the Zealot, pressured there, used a great timing with his Storms and his Templar, hid everything so well. And ASD he didn't have enough. A lot of his units just were out of position in that medevac.
Entombed Valley is going to be a very exciting map right now. This is also one of the maps that Mana had to play when he was playing against Tasia. This was actually the only map that he won against Tasia. And right now we're heading straight into the second game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the GSL Code A round of 48, brought to you by Carl Dunwall.